So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And for the programming schedule of the X Zone TV channel, on Simul TV or Channel 21, visit www.simultv.com. My guest this hour, Exonation, is Brooks Agnew. He grew up in Pasadena, California, hanging around JPL and Cal Tech. He entered the Air Force in 1973, where he graduated top in his class in electronic engineering. I've had the pleasure of having Brooks on the show before, and instead of me just rambling through his bio, Brooks, welcome back to the X Zone. Great having you with us.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Good to be here with you and your great X Zone audience.
Thank you, my friend. What's new with you?
Well, we're making some progress on several fronts. The trilogy I wrote the last couple of years, we're writing scripts now to get it ready for a TV series.
Right.
That's in the works and coming along nicely.
Excellent.
Making some progress on the technology side with the electric truck.
Really? Tell me about the advances that you've done.
Well, one of the things that we've been trying to do is get the range a little higher. We had been publishing a 100-mile range early last year. And so this year we've been working on more efficiency in the motor, playing around with gear ratios, and we finally got the range up to 200 miles. So that makes it a really, really viable vehicle now.
Wow, that's cool. When do you expect to have it on the market?
That is a good question. The difficult thing is getting through the airbag licensing program. That takes about 12 months. So we're looking at probably spring of 2020 before these trucks will be able to be sold on the highway.
Well, good luck and continued success to you on that front, my friend.
Wish we had luck. Unfortunately, it's all hard work and sweat.
All righty. Listen, one of the things that we've talked about here on the show is the hollow earth theory, and I was wondering if you could tell us more about it.
Sure. And I've kind of grew into this over time. I didn't start out to be the Hollow Earth guy, for sure. But somebody handed me a book, I think it was in 2001 or 2002, about the Hollow Earth, and I read it, and I thought, oh, that's nice. That's very entertaining. And, I'd been through classic geology and planetary core physics, and, everybody knew we just lived on a big molten ball in space, and somehow we existed on tectonic plates that float around there, and trees and grass and air, and we never paid much attention to it. But then some evidence started popping up, specifically space-based evidence, and then some really amazing geological evidence that was uncovered by a deep study of the USGS's data. And now all of a sudden we are calling into question that old idea, and we're coming up with new hypotheses, and we're trying to run experiments that are feasible and doable, short of, tunneling to the core of the Earth and finding out for ourselves, to prove or disprove whether we do in fact live on that molten ball.
Now, when you look at the Earth from space, you certainly see it's round, but a lot of people point out to a region over the North Pole that apparently doesn't match the rest of the landscape or the scenery. Can you tell us about that? Well,
it's a good question. Direct observation of the actual North Pole has been done. People sail there once a year. They walk around, take some selfies, and then go home and tell their kids about it. But the region a couple hundred miles away from the North Pole is of particular interest. It's an area that's never been sailed to before, and it's not really been seen from space because it's always covered by clouds. We have seen X-ray pictures of it and infrared pictures of it, and frankly, we've been taking X-ray and infrared pictures of other planets as well, and we're seeing the same anomaly on all the planets that we can get close to. That's what really has people scratching their heads. These polar regions the crust tends to be very much thinner, and it seems to emit a kind of electrojet of energy that shows up as a bright spot where certainly none should be. It should be ice cold, but it's not.
So if the Earth is hollow, couldn't we just do core sampling?
Well, we could, theoretically, but the deepest hole on the entire Earth is only 8 miles. And the crust, based on information we've been able to measure, and I'll say measure that indirectly, kind of like, the USGS has listening stations all over the planet, less now than they used to because they're more sophisticated, but every time there's a major earthquake in one location on the Earth, the other listening stations on the other side of the planet pick up those vibrations in a delayed fashion. And once that information is analyzed and modeled, we kind of get a CAT scan of the Earth. We're getting pretty good with that technology. And we think, based on that information, that somewhere around the equator, the crust is around 900 miles thick. We just can't drill through it. We can't support a piece of steel 900 miles long.
So how will we ever be able to prove one way or another if, in fact, the Earth is hollow?
Well, that's maybe the third level of the hypothesis. We want to do, baby steps first, things that we can actually measure. Like if there is a core to the Earth, what is it made of, and how large is it, and what's its temperature? We've been able to do that. If there is this 900-mile thick crust, is it stable, or is it undulating like a soap bubble, and that's what pumps the magma around the planet and creates earthquakes and volcanoes? That's a good question. But the biggest question is there a space between the inner core and the crust? Those are the three big questions that all the JPL projects, and they're not just off-planet, they're also terrestrial projects, and several of the geological authorities, both NOAA and EUMETSAT, are trying to answer right now.
I'm just trying to fathom why this happens, if in fact there is a hollow earth, why this hasn't been investigated fully before now.
Well, I wish I was a better why person, because I don't know who would examine it, and we've been relying on governments to tell us the truth for so long, and they haven't done it for so long.
But instead of pointing the finger at the government, shouldn't we point the finger at the scientists? Because it's not the government who is saying don't investigate this; it's the scientists who are saying, we don't have the time or the resources or the desire to investigate this.
Well, I think the first one and the last one, they definitely have. Resources they do not have. Scientists pick crumbs with the sparrows. What they rely on are government grants to do virtually all their research. And most of the grants on the university level, at least the top of the food chain, is going to be DARPA or the CIA. There are subgroups underneath that. There's the Polar Science Foundation inside the U.S. government, one of the many small alphabet soup agencies and departments that exist in the government, but their money actually comes from DARPA or from the CIA. So if it's not interesting to them, or if they don't want it investigated, they're not going to write checks.
You and I have to take our first break, and when we come back, let's continue this very interesting conversation on the solid Earth versus hollow Earth theory with our guest this hour, Exonation, Brooks Agnew. And if you'd like to find out more about Brooks, visit his website at www.brooksagnew.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. All right, Craig, can I get number two, please?
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Brooks Agnew is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, www.brooksagnew.com. And Brooks, when did the upswing and the renewed interest in the hollow theory pick up, and what was the catalyst behind it?
Well, that's a good question. They began taking pictures of Earth, or what are called satellite composites, from space. Probably 2005, 2006. And I guess the thing that got everybody back to the table was an image of the Earth that showed auroras over both poles at the same time. That was very interesting because we, for a long time, had just assumed that auroras were caused by the solar wind, that the solar wind, blows away from the sun, somewhere around 400 or 500 kilometers a second. It carries charged particles with it. Those particles strike our upper atmosphere, ionize molecules that are in the upper atmosphere. They can't release the energy any other way but to put off light. So we see it as an aurora. But to see auroras over both poles at the same time, it caused into question that theory that it's just caused by the wind striking the atmosphere because it can't strike both sides of the planet at the same time. So they very quickly got together a set of 5 satellites, which were called the Themis probe, and they put them in a nose cone, launched them into 5 levels of orbits, and those 5 satellites went around the Earth, and occasionally they would line up like a Jacob's ladder going out into space. They would energize them and run the program, taking measurements, and try to see if an aurora occurred, and maybe they could see where this energy was coming from. If it was coming from the sun or from the galaxy or some gravitational wave coming through. And what they reported was something that, for us it was a scientific cop-out, actually. They called it a cosmic bullet. They said that somewhere between satellites 3 and 4, out of nowhere, some other dimension, this explosion occurred. And the explosion, of course, went out in all directions. It passed satellites 4 and 5 and went out into space. It passed satellites 3, 2, 1, and when it struck the atmosphere, there was the aurora. And that was their report. That whole multi-million-dollar experiment was one letter, one report. And we were watching it very closely, said that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And we kind of thought that they were finding a way to back out of it. But that's not what happened at all. Everybody got excited at that point because they really, really wanted to find out where was the aurora coming from. And so they began doing experiments to see if it was this electrojet idea that counter-rotating or energetic spinning bodies somehow generate this very strong electromagnetic field that's perpendicular to the rotation, which means, right out the axle, like the axle of a wheel. And that's exactly what they found. And they found it wasn't steady, it wasn't reliable, but it was there. So then the race was on to find out what is the source of this energy. So Cambridge University did a study. They started spectrographically measuring the frequency that was coming from the center of the Earth. They put several transducers around the planet, and they picked up this frequency, and it seemed to be a very nice, clean iron spike. Every single element has a fixed amount of protons and neutrons as part of the nucleus, which places the electrons at exact locations, mathematically speaking. We know what these locations are, and we know what frequency they put off, like a guitar string. We know the note of iron. And so Cambridge made an assumption that based on that, the core was made of pure iron, and that it was probably in crystalline formation or in a crystalline structure, which would mean that its temperature would have to be about 6,000 degrees C, except that what they were measuring was 5,000 degrees C indirectly, and that just didn't make sense. So Carnegie Science redid it, and this time they duplicated the conditions of the core by taking iron, putting it into a small crucible. They crushed it very tightly against two industrial diamonds in this anvil to what they believed to be the pressures which are created at the center of the core. And then they shot lasers through the diamonds and heated up that sample to 6,000 degrees C. Not only did they duplicate the frequency, but they created, once they opened up the anvil, this perfect iron crystal, almost like a diamond, except it was made out of iron. And it was very dense, somewhere around 7 or 8 grams per cubic centimeter, which is far more dense than what we had expected. And that threw the astrophysicists in a quandary, because we know how big the orbit of the Earth is. We know how the diameter of the Earth. We know how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun. And from those calculations, we're able to say what the density or what the Earth weighs. And what we were off about was the density. We know the gross weight. We just don't know what the components weigh. We have always had this 1 gram assumption that on average planets are about 1 gram per cubic centimeter. Well, that was way off, because the distance from the sun to the Earth is off by about 1,200 kilometers, if that's the case. It's always been kind of a fudge factor for us. But once you realize that the core of the Earth is way heavier than we thought it was, and it's way smaller than what we thought it was, and you calculate in this gap between the core and the crust, assuming that this crust is that 900 mile thick that we've measured with the seismograms, now we have a totally different structure of the Earth. And lo and behold, Harvard issued the drawing, their model of what the Earth looks like. And you have this inner, well, for lack of a better word, we'll call it inner sun, because it's white hot, except it's iron. It's not a fusion sun like a star. Mm-hmm. And then you have this gap, and then you have the inner crust. There was only one piece of evidence that was missing, and that came along when Dr. Weiss Sessions at Washington University crunched 600,000 of these seismograms and detected the waves of an ocean on the inside of the crust. That was the missing piece. And once we put all these pieces together, we now had a new model of what the Earth looked like, and there is, in fact, a measurable void between the crust and the inside of the outside of the core.
So when you say there this ocean motion that's in the center of the Earth, are we talking about water? Or are we talking about molten metal?
Nope, we're talking about water, an ocean underneath the Atlantic Ocean, at least the size of the Atlantic Ocean, with waves crashing on a shore inside the crust.
That kind of sounds really far-fetched.
Kind of sounds like Journey to the Center of the Earth, a la...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, you've traveled all over the world. Have you come across any legends from the ancients that talk about the Hollow Earth theory?
That's a good question, because we didn't start out looking for it. We, my co-author and I, researched 44 ancient cultures, going back as far as we could get, all the way to the Kabbalah. The Sefer Yetzirah, the oldest recorded record that we have, Babylonians, Zapotecs, Olmecs. Every single one of these traditions, religions, cultures, had an almost unified idea that there is some kind of life force in the center of the earth, and that humans have a kind of symbiotic relationship with that life force. Now, they called it different things, gods and spirits and all kinds of things, but the description was basically the same. All of the characteristics of this symbiosis were the same. And many of these traditions described the earth as having a living space on the inside of it.
Is it possible that there is another life force, something like a human that resides down there?
Well, I mean, yes, there's always possibilities. I'm a physicist, so I talk about possibilities all the time. Probabilities now, that's what really got us excited about doing what we call the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, which was really the final journey, I guess, in this 10-year-long search for the legend of the Hollow Earth, to take an icebreaker and to try to go up to this area of the Arctic that's never been sailed before and look for this opening in the crust. Now, it may be 3,000 meters underwater, but the idea that there's an inner ocean and a surface ocean means, especially if they're blending, that sea chemistry, that sea life is going to be very different at that opening. That's we thought we could get hard evidence to discover.
All right, Brooke, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Fascinating gentleman with a fascinating story. Brooks Agnew is our guest this hour, Exonation. www.brooksagnew.com, and we'll both be back on the other side of the news. Don't go away. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Brooks Agnew is our guest, Exonation, www.brooksagnew.com. Brooks, when it comes to the ocean beneath the Atlantic Ocean, how does that work geologically? How do we maintain an ocean where there's no sunlight? Where does the precipitation come from to replenish the ocean that's down there? How does this work?
Well, those are good questions. We guessed that the two oceans are not completely isolated, that at the poles it would make sense that the crust would thin just based on the centripetal force of the planet rotating, trying to conserve momentum. It would make sense that the Earth is a lot thicker at the equator than it is the poles. So we also we found at least 4 major ancient traditions that recorded a universal flood, a Noah's flood kind of event. And in each of these cases, they talked about the fountains of the earth opening up, that the sea actually seemed to come out of the planet as well as raining down, from the heavens. So this was a cataclysm. This was not something that lasted, 40 days and 40 nights. It went on for 7 months. This was an incredible geotechnic event that just about wiped out all the Earth, all the life on Earth. I would say gravitationally, if we think we know what gravity is, Earth is really made of 2 gravitational bodies. One is the core, and the other is the crust. Now, the crust has a lot more mass to it. It's much bigger, 900-mile thick crust that's 22,000 miles in circumference. Is really a lot of mass. So the crust itself has its own gravitational center, and the core has its gravitational center. If we just go off of Newton's laws, we correctly measure that we accelerate. Right now, you and I are accelerating toward the center of the Earth at 32 feet per second. Hopefully, the chair we're sitting in is stopping us from doing that. But that's our gravitational acceleration toward the center of the planet. On the inside of the crust, if you were standing on the inside of the crust directly beneath your feet, with your feet facing your feet, the gravitational pull would be less, somewhere around 13 or 14 feet per second squared. But it would still be gravity. It would just be a little over half of what we're experiencing now. Because Newton says that once you're on the inside of a sphere, his laws say that all of the gravity cancels itself out, unless there is a body inside of a body. Then you have a different mathematics. And a lot of people are writing papers about this, what the gravitational picture would look like on the inside of the planet. And I wouldn't say there's no light, because iron at 6,000 degrees C puts off an intense white light, but it will be behind somewhere around 1,000 miles of atmosphere. So there would be weather on the inside of the planet. There would be areas where there's ocean and areas where there is dry land. And so you would have evaporation and condensation and rain and all of that. You just wouldn't have a jet stream and weather like we have here on the surface. We don't reckon, because it's a land with no horizon. You would have photosynthesis, because iron at that wavelength will, in fact, allow plants to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugar and into cellulose. that's what grow lamps are. They're basically iron filaments, and plants grow just fine with them. So you'd have photosynthesis, you would have green life, which means you probably would have animal life. It might be microbial, it might be more complex, and of course there are lots of people out there that speculate that it might even be intelligent. We just don't know.
What would the gravity be like for a person who lives on the surface as let's say that we did get down to the place where there's a second ocean? Would the gravity be different? Would it be stronger?
Nope, it would be weaker. It would be just a little over half of what we're experiencing right now. So if you were like me, I weigh 0.1 metric tons. I would be very comfortable at that gravity. But I don't think you could make the switch. I don't think if you grew up in that area that you could make the switch to our surface. You would weigh twice as much. I don't know if your bones can handle it, or not to mention your exposure to ultraviolet light, which you wouldn't be exposed to on the inside. And so maybe the two worlds are no longer compatible for that reason.
But what, in your opinion, it would be the dangers for us down in this second world, the inner world?
Well, I mean, they could be just like they are in any jungle. We could be food.
Mm-hmm.
We might not adapt too well because of different microbes and things that we don't have immunities for. But that's the only thing really that I can speculate on right now. I would say that creatures that live in the sea down there would probably live just fine in the sea up here, with the exception of maybe a temperature difference or salinity difference. And that's really what happened. In 2008, there was an anomalous calving, where a large piece of ice breaks off. We call it calving. And there was a large piece that broke off in 2008, partly because the Arctic was abnormally warm that year in the summer, in the winter, and partly because the jet stream was not blowing in its normal direction. It wasn't doing this, polar vortex where it kind of descends down in the Midwest. It was kind of going across toward Nova Scotia. Anyway, it put stress on the ice. The ice broke off, and 2008 just happened to be the year that Scripps went to do their sample of rays in Malaysia. Every so often, they do a sample of rays, like stingrays and manta rays, because they are very much like tree frogs in the Amazon. They respond to environmental stress by mutating very easily. And normally, they find 20, maybe 30 or 40 new species of rays every time they go do one of these surveys. But in 2008, they found 1,500 new species of rays. And they netted creatures that we have not seen alive for about 1 million years, like frilled sharks and dorsal squids. And these are fully mature animals. They just don't exist in our ocean, but there they were.
Well, is it possible that they existed in our ocean, but we just haven't found them yet?
Well, it's possible, but not in that quantity. You might catch one every now and then, but when you're going and doing a survey and then you find these live, fully mature animals, it's not like they grew up by themselves. They're part of a genetic family. What makes more sense is that somehow a pathway between the inner ocean and the outer ocean was made available by that ice opening up, and that allowed this mix to occur. That's what we really need to go sample.
Interesting. So what's the next step for the members of the scientific community when it comes to further investigating this possibility that we've been living on a hollow earth all the time?
Well, that's a good question. We've been doing, I think, a lot of things that are much harder than what I want to do. We've been going to other planets. We've been going to Uranus, which we found another planet on the inside of Uranus that was just released this year. We actually sent the probe many years ago, but we just discovered that there is this other planet on the inside of Uranus, which is not something that we expected to find at all. We also know that Enceladus has an under ice ocean that may have life, and it does. We're sending a probe there to examine the plumes of water that Enceladus spews out into space to see if there's microbial life in that. We've even gone so far as to send a probe to Pluto, because Pluto, as it turns out, is hollow. And we found these amazing images of Pluto, nothing like what we expected. I think those are much harder than what I want to do. All I want to do is rent a nuclear-powered icebreaker, take a few dozen of these best science teams and some filmmakers, and go search for this opening in the crust. Simple, about $3 million and 3 weeks, and we could have it done. But that has proven to be very elusive for our team.
All right, stand by, Brooks. You and I have to take our final break. And Exonation, when we come back, we'll be talking to our guest this hour about, first of all, we'll wrap up on the hollow Earth, and then we'll talk about new energy and the agency government. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Path Home Shamanic Art School has just launched a new online series of classes, Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow. In these classes, composed and taught by Path Home founder and director Gwilda Wiyaka, you'll learn practical shamanic skills to support your daily life, such as how to build a medicine wheel to access the power of the earth, perform a shamanic journey, create sacred space in which to live and work, empower your life with totem animals, elementals, and fairy folk, and learn the art of accurately reading signs and omens. These tried and true skills are the key to living a powerful, productive life. Visit us at findyourpathhome.com to see the ever-growing collection of classes and leading-edge information to support you during these times of uncertainty and transition. All can be found at findyourpathhome.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along?
The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, The 70-Year Cover-Up Exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Nation, my guest this hour is Brooke Agnew, and we're talking to Brooks about the first part of the show and most of the show about the solid Earth versus hollow Earth. And Brooks, we were saying, or you were saying before we went to our final break, that you're just looking for $3 million to do this expedition. Now, with all the resources of the Canadian Coast Guard, United States Coast Guard, as well as the independent agencies that are out there, why is this such a hard feat? Like, wouldn't these other agencies want to jump on board? Because is it possible that the hollow Earth also is a treasure trove for energy?
Well, that's a good question. Unfortunately, there are only 3 ships on Earth that can make this voyage. And the Russians own all 3 of them. There used to be more, but they retired them. They are old Soviet icebreakers. But the new ones, this new class of ship, especially the Arctica, which they just christened, is an amazing vessel. 458 feet long, nuclear powered. It's got a 3.5-year fuel supply.
Right.
It can 128 passengers. This is the ship that can make this journey. No other nation on Earth has nuclear-powered icebreakers but them.
So why not work with the Russians?
We are. That's who we're working with, Murmansk Shipping Company. And that's why we were able to get the prices as low as we could, but you still have to write the check. And then you have to get all the scientists to St. Petersburg and then up to Murmansk and then out for 15 days, back, and then home. So it's about $3.5 million to pull this off. In that time, we'll shoot about 3,000 hours of film. Mm-hmm. That's when the post-production work starts.
Okay, but once again, it makes no sense to me that if this is such a significant find, or based on the information that has been collected that points to the existence of a hollow Earth, why the nations of the world would not get on board, why this has to be left to private enterprise. What would they be losing if, in fact, they took the adventure as an Earth project, went out to see if this exists, and if it does, here's a question: who would have the rights to it?
Well, that is a good question. The group that I'm working with, and this is a global group. Most of our effort is being led from here in this country, but we also have associates in Australia. Mm-hmm. We've been working now, this is our 11th year that we've been working on this project. We've poured a lot of money into this, way more than I ever thought we'd pour into it. And, of course, all it would take is 1 or 2 really big donors to come forward, and we could do the greatest expedition ever on this planet.
What about Bill Gates? He's got a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll call him right up. I don't know anybody who knows Bill Gates' phone number. And we've been out here. Everybody who does 3 minutes of searching on any social media, any tech media out there, they'll find us. We're the only hollow Earth expedition in the world. They wanted to support us, they could.
Once again, what about the Smithsonian? What about National Geographic? They're always spending money on expeditions.
Not this large. The most they'll spend on an expedition is about $100,000. This is it's even beyond the cable channels. We went to Netflix. We went to Nat Geo and Discovery Channel and History Channel, and I've done specials on all those channels, but not this big.
So how are you going to raise the money?
We're going to try to advertise a film. We're going to say this is, we'll do a reality show that will end all reality shows.
But what happens if it's a failure? What happens if there's nothing there?
Then we'll see a bunch of whales and ice and seasick scientists, but it will be infinitely more entertaining than the Kardashians.
It's also a lot more riskier.
I like risk.
But investors don't. Investors will look at a risk and say, all right, it's feasible, it's possible. What am I going to get from my return? All right, we're going to get a film. We're going to get a movie that's never been done before. How do we generate revenue from that?
Well, what we would do is we would do a live broadcast from the ship on several channels.
Mm-hmm.
We would allow people to subscribe to that channel so they could watch the expedition, all 15 days of it. Cost them maybe $7, $8 to log on.
Mm-hmm.
Our pilot film was viewed by 17 million Japanese in Tokyo, Japan on Nippon Television Network. It wouldn't even take an audience that big to make this feasible.
And nobody's biting.
I didn't say that. I just said it's been a challenge, and we haven't put the money together yet, but we're optimistic.
Okay. If people want to find out more about your Hollow Earth endeavors, where can they go?
Of course, you can go to brooksagnew.com, or you can go to any of the events that I'm speaking at. I'll be speaking in March in Sedona, in April in Las Vegas. You can find out about those on brooksagnew.com as well. Come see the presentation live and see what we have gathered so far.
Before we go, we have to talk to you about energy. And, you talked about your truck at the beginning of the show, but when it comes to John Q. Public, what can you see in the future, or, based on your experience or knowledge, where energy is going to be a lot more cost efficient than it is right now? Energy prices are going up instead of down.
Yes, and that's primarily because energy usage is pretty flat. It's pretty flat for the next 20 years that we can see. And the companies that make that energy have to make more money, so they raise the prices. Now, that being said, energy for the people that use it is pretty expensive, but if you divide it by the number of people on the earth, it's still pretty cheap. The issue is we don't store it very well. Solar power, we make plenty of solar power. We just make it at the wrong time of day. We need to store that energy for 4 or 6 more hours, and that storage picture has been elusive. We have tried, batteries, of course, and battery technology is so old. It's, I would say, at least 10 years old. We use the most advanced batteries in the world in our trucks, and they are woefully lacking in being able to charge enough times and hold a charge long enough. But there is technology that's coming. It just relies on elements that we don't have in large numbers, like vanadium and tellurium, things like that. I think we should go find a vanadium asteroid, haul it back into orbit, carve it up, and that would fix the Earth for the next 100 years.
That sounds like a simple way of doing it. Why don't we just do it? Because
I came up with the idea in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Top math students in California, and I was interviewed on the newspaper, and they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "An asteroid miner." They still haven't done it.
A lot of wind turbine farms are popping up all over the place across Canada and across the different oceans. Why?
They are. And as far as generating electricity is our favorite form of energy.
Yeah.
We're getting better and better at it, and we're getting greener and greener at it, and eventually that's going to have its effect for sure. We're not going to make it by burning coal or splitting atoms or anything like that. We're gonna make it much more efficiently. But again, it is a matter of storage. What happens when the wind doesn't blow? What happens when it's cloudy?
Yeah.
In Hawaii, which is pretty close to the equator, they're making their energy about 5 hours too early.
Really?
Yeah, they make plenty of energy between 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 4.
Right.
But when people get off work at 5, that's when they need the energy, and they're already down by almost 30% by that time. What they need is a way to store that peak energy that nobody's using, that's just wasted.
And the problem they're having is because they don't have the proper storage utensils or utilities, such as batteries, that can actually hold the energy for longer?
Correct. We've been using lithium. We've been using, various acids, but they don't charge up to very high voltage, 2 or 3 volts, and they don't take very many cycles, 4,000 cycles, and they're done. Vanadium can take 5 volts, which is almost a 50% increase in charge density, and you can charge it up tens of thousands of times. It would last for half a lifetime.
So it seems that we put the cart before the horse. Instead of inventing the battery to hold the energy, we developed the means to create the energy, and we don't have the means to store the energy.
Well, sort of. I mean, from an economic model, you want to create the customers before you create the supply. Like they put charging stations all over the country, but there's still no electric cars to use them, and that's primarily because there are a couple of agencies that are dead set against electric vehicles hitting the American highway, and it would surprise everyone to know who those are.
Well, Brooks, unfortunately, we can't find out tonight because we've just run out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. And Exo Nation, if you would like to find out more about Brooks, all you need to do is go to www.brooksagnew.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.